Trump's strategy of sending in the National Guard to these failing Democrat cities is effective when you have mayors like Brandon Johnson, Muriel Bowser, or like here in Los Angeles, Mayor Karen, just having full-blown meltdowns that, for once, we're getting law and order here instead of the chaos that Democrats love to wallow in.
I've spoken to both mayors recently, Mayor Bowser as well as Mayor Johnson in Chicago and Mayor Lee in Oakland. About how we are going to respond to this federal overreach. I did describe Los Angeles as being a petri dish because
it's a federal overreach now, huh?
This was the first experiment. Washington, D.C. was number 2. Chicago is next. And in my opinion, this is a way of getting the American public to accept military intervention.
Oh, shut up.
Because after a while, it becomes normalized, and people aren't surprised to see soldiers on the streets. This is terrible because our military is not trained to do crowd control or crime intervention. It is a misuse of our troops. It's extremely inappropriate, and I would question whether or not it's a violation of our Constitution.
You will be hard-pressed to see Mayor Karen do anything about crime ever. We've had a nonstop wave of smash and grabs here in Los Angeles for literally months. Groups organize street takeovers, those dumb car drifting circles at intersections, and then just walk into nearby stores and loot 3 or 4 of them in a row. The police do absolutely nothing. Why? Because the LAPD has been gutted. They're so severely under-resourced that they can't even respond. Just yesterday, in an entirely different city, we saw a clip out of Oakland, Barbara Lee's district, where 500 people showed up for one of these dumb takeovers, and the police didn't send anyone. Why? Because they only had 16 vehicles on duty. That's all it took, folks. 500 people to completely destabilize law enforcement in a major American city. And LA isn't far behind. The LAPD has lost roughly 2,000 officers in the last few years. In 2020, we had around 12,000 police officers in a city of nearly 10 million people, already an absurdly low ratio. Now it's down to just over 10,000. And if current trends continue, that number could drop to 8,000. And that's why in certain areas, precincts don't even open until 9 a.m. anymore, and some close by sundown. Think about that, folks. Crime doesn't stop when the sun goes down. But in parts of Los Angeles, neither does the ability to report it. I've sat in community meetings and heard it straight from residents. They've called for help and no one came, not because police didn't care, but because there was literally no one available. The LAPD is short-staffed. They're forced to prioritize crimes, which means if your situation doesn't make the top of the list, you're just out of luck. And this isn't just anecdotal. According to the 2024 California Department of Justice report, the statewide clearance rate for reported crimes is a dismal 16%. That means 84% of crimes go unsolved and typically unprosecuted. In LA, the numbers vary. Homicides are solved around 70% of the time. Violent crimes around 40% of the time. And property crimes, well, that's less than 15%. The result is a silent epidemic of lawlessness. And now, when the federal government tries to intervene, when D.C. finally gets involved after years of local failure, the same Democrats who defunded their police and let their cities rot suddenly start screeching about constitutional violations and troops in the city. They frame federal support as an authoritarian power grab, but in reality, it's a response to their own total abdication of responsibility. What you're watching here from Mayor Karen is a long con. Starve law enforcement, redefine crime out of existence, block any outside help, and then cry tyranny when someone actually steps in to restore order. It's not about protecting citizens. It's about protecting the political narrative. Democrats like Mayor Karen, Brandon Johnson, Barbara Lee would rather let their cities burn than admit their ideology has failed. They've created a crisis they can't fix, and now they want to block anyone else from fixing it either. That's not leadership, folks. It's sabotage. And the people of Los Angeles, Oakland, Chicago, and D.C. are paying the price for all of this, which, let's be real for a second, it's intentional. All by design. They want this perpetual crisis because it's the way that they usher in their Marxist utopia. It's the way, the excuse they have to expand their government power, to keep us divided. Don't fall for it, folks. These people don't care about you. They go on TV and pay lip service about your community, about your interests, but at the end of the day, they're career politicians who are only looking out for themselves.
I want them to know that I am an Angelino born and raised here, and I'm going to do anything and everything I can to fight for it, to defend my city, and to make sure that we have the best quality of life possible.
Well, that's rich coming from the same woman who's allowed Los Angeles to descend into chaos time and time again, offering absolutely no real solutions, just more press conferences, photo ops, and the usual screeching about how Trump is the real threat. Mayor Karen saying that she'll do anything and everything to protect this city from federal intervention is absolutely laughable, because the only thing this administration is protecting is its own image. The federal government stepping in is not the first move. It's a last resort. It means local leadership has failed completely. And let's be clear, that's exactly what's happened in Los Angeles. Our city has been bleeding out for years. We're not talking about isolated issues, folks. We're talking about systemic failures across every layer of city governance. And it's never been more evident that the broader issue here is purely ideological. Democrats like Mayor Karen are far more invested in maintaining narrative control than public safety. They frame any federal involvement as an authoritarian power grab, while conveniently ignoring that they've spent years dismantling local institutions. They cut police budgets, decriminalize offenses, eliminate cash bail, and then act shocked when crime spirals out of control. They call it compassion, reform, equity, but it's just abandonment. Abandonment of the working class, of small business owners, of anyone who dares to ask for basic law and order. Now when someone like Trump steps in and says enough is enough, they try to flip the script. Suddenly it's a constitutional crisis. Suddenly he's the threat. No, he's not the one who let homelessness explode, or who let cartels operate in broad daylight, or who made it normal for Angelinos to wake up to break-ins, needles, or human waste outside our doorsteps. That's you, Mayor Karen. That's your legacy. So no, Mayor, you don't get to claim the moral high ground here. When the federal government has to step in, it's because you've abandoned your post. It's because the residents of this city have suffered enough. And if you were truly committed to protecting Angelinos, you'd welcome every ounce of help you could get instead of treating your failure like a badge of honor. And by the way, folks, in case you're curious to see just how hypocritical Democrats can be, one day in the news, Mayor Karen was saying that she bleeds for Angelinos. She's here for the Angelinos. And then the very next day on a podcast, she says this.
What I used to do is I used to do town halls all the time. And I love that public engagement. Town halls are a little more difficult now, though, not having anything to do with this year, but just having to do with the nature of public discourse now.
What an absolute gaslighter in chief this lady is. It's got nothing to do with this year. Are you kidding me? It's got everything to do with this year, Mayor Karen. This year, accountability finally came knocking on Mayor Karen's door. Up until now, people were pointing fingers at the federal level, understandably, because we had open borders, rising inflation, and lawlessness flowing straight to Biden's White House. But now that there's some level of order federally from Trump, the rot at the local level is getting exposed. And where is that rot more visible than here in Los Angeles, where the crime is out of control, traffic is a nightmare, homelessness is just getting worse by the day, wildfires have destroyed entire communities, and basic services are collapsing. This is Mayor Karen's backyard, and it's burning. But instead of facing it, facing us, she's decided to retreat into a bubble and blame the nature of public discourse for why she won't do town halls anymore. Which is rich coming from someone who just moments ago was claiming she's fighting for Angelinos and doing everything she can for the city except talking to the people that apparently she represents. Everything except standing in front of the residents who live with the consequences of her policies, right? Look, this isn't even about tone. It's about discourse. It's about accountability. It's about the fact that Mayor Karen doesn't want to sit in a room with citizens who are angry, frustrated, and rightfully tired of being ignored. Because now that people are paying attention to what's happening locally, now that the distraction of federal chaos has receded, these city leaders are exposed for what they are: inept, unprepared, and more committed to narrative control than the actual leadership that they were elected to do. But what's truly astonishing is the victimhood in display here. Mayor Karen paints herself like she's under siege. Like it's just so emotionally difficult to listen to the public's concern. Bro, I mean, lady, you're not a victim. You are the mayor. And if it's too hard for you to face your constituents in an open forum, maybe it's time for you to resign. You signed up to lead, not to hide. You want to stand for Angelinos, then stand in front of them. Get your ass into a town hall, not curated questions, not media-run Q&As, no friendly crowds pre-screened by your staff. Show up, face the people, because we are done with these stage-managed performances disguised as engagement. Town halls should be mandatory once a month for public officials. Open mic, real-time Q&A. And I've been to some of these events, like one with, State Assemblyman Nick Schultz, and I can tell you, they are completely sanitized. You couldn't get a single critical question in edgewise. Every concern was a softball. Every answer was pre-scripted. That's not democracy, folks. It's just straight up PR. This moment, all in all, says a lot about the Democrats' current grip on public discourse. They champion dialogue, equity, and listening until the voices get inconvenient. Then it becomes toxic, unsafe, too difficult. They've created a culture where any challenge to their authority is framed as aggression, where frustration is labeled as hate, and where leaders no longer feel obligated to show up in person unless the environment is perfectly controlled and curated. And that is not how a republic is supposed to function. Elected leaders answer to the people. And if they're too fragile to do that, then they should get the hell out of office. So the question is, how much longer are we willing to tolerate leadership that hides behind press releases and curated sound bites while our cities crumble around us? How many more times will we let words like discourse and equity be weaponized to deflect from basic failures of duty by Democrats? At what point does civic engagement mean demanding real answers, not just applauding the illusion of them? If Democrats can't stomach unfiltered voices from the very people they claim to serve, then what exactly are they serving besides themselves? These aren't isolated incidents, folks. They're symptoms of a deeper rot in our institutions where comfort has replaced courage and image has overtaken impact. You don't need to agree with every policy to recognize cowardice when you see it. And maybe it's time we stop accepting narratives designed to pacify us and start asking who they're really meant to protect. You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.